Morning.
Turn it. So, yes, press, got it.
We are now being recorded. I am almost updated with the YouTube page, just to remind everybody. I think I'm lacking the videos from yesterday, but I will be putting those on here momentarily. We should have our guest coming in here in just a moment. Can I do, while we wait for her, I didn't ask Candace for permission, but all right, everyone close your ears for a second. Candace, can we share about your coaching conversation yesterday morning?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you share? Everyone can open their ears now.
Let me back out of the driveway. Hang on one sec. Well, what happened is I had one that I was going to do my morning ritual, which consists of prayer, gratitude, exercise, and meditation, a couple of other things. And I had just been sleeping in and not doing it. And so Bill gave me some coaching around that. And in digging deeper into why it was important to me, I found out that the pain of not doing it meant evening, I have nothing left to give to my husband.
Hold on. Hold on. Say that again. Missed you.
I said, in delving into why it was important, some pain came up, and the pain was around that when I get home at night, I have nothing left to give my husband because I'm not getting up and exercising and doing what I need to do. I'm just sleeping in. And I've been I was sick, so I had an excuse, but I don't have that excuse anymore. And what came up is that it really hit me emotionally that it hit me emotionally that my husband is the reason why I do everything and the meaning for everything that I do. And to not be able to have enough energy at the end of the day for the most important person in my life was devastating. So guess who got up and did her morning ritual this morning?
Very nice. I'm going to guess that was you.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, so there was one other part of that. There was one other part that that I'd like to share, if that's okay. Which is it wasn't just establishing the relationship between the execution of the morning plan and her energy levels when she gets home. It was her execution or lack of execution of the morning plan, morning ritual, and her, I don't want to say lack of energy during the day, but it was creating a larger gap than was necessary or healthy in the energy that she needs to be an effective realtor and coach and what she's capable of. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And as I want to just take a quick minute to share, like this is the power of coaching. Is literally in less than a minute, we went from I didn't do my morning routine as frequently as I want to or need to, or I said was important, and I'm not bringing the appropriate amount of energy to my work day, and therefore I'm also not bringing the appropriate amount of energy to my family when I get home. And as a result, once that connection is made, and sometimes that's hard to see, it's almost virtually impossible to see without the help of somebody kind of walking you through that, right? And somebody as great of a partner as Candace's husband would not be able to help Candace identify that. She needs a totally third party to help her identify that. Does that make sense?
And it didn't take but about minutes to go from, oh, I'm doing okay, to tears and realizing how I'm letting him down. And oh, I'm going to get emotional again, but it tied the reason why I do the morning habit to my heart and my tears and my love for this man and my love for all of you, and made it impossible not to do. And I'm going to get emotional again, so stop.
But you know what? That's the power. That's the power. Is really making the connection between when we were under no stress and we were trying to figure out what's important to us about life, right? Personally, professionally, etc. What is the connection between that stuff and what we have to do every day, and the connection with that stuff and the likelihood of it happening versus what happens when we don't execute on our daily plan, right?
I,
Whether
I
it's
feel
business related or not. Candace, go ahead.
I feel kind of like that person who says, "Oh, I can't be hypnotized," and then all of a sudden I wake up and I've been barking like a dog.
Right. Well, the thing
Because somebody
is
told
you
me
wake
to.
up and you're immediately thinking about our conversation.
Yeah.
And your brain doesn't know any better, and so it goes right back to where it was at 8:15 yesterday morning, right? Okay. Thank you for allowing us to share that this morning. We have a very special guest on today. Paige, would you like me to give a slight introduction for you, or do you want to jump right in? Oh, you're on mute too.
Okay, there we go.
Introduction for those who don't know Paige.
Okay, so Paige, I'm going to let you kind of give a little bit of kind of historical background on your world and your business, but I'll just tell you kind of my impressions of Paige since I have gotten to know her. She came to our office back like what, last fall or so?
Yeah, last September.
Last September, right? So she immediately came in and she just does what you have to do to have a business and to grow a business, right? She from this is from my perch completely, right? She doesn't think of lead generation as this thing that is like different or separate from
Yeah,
her
we'll have it.
from her character, right? From her daily interactions with her network. That is lead generation for her, right? Whether it be her social media efforts, whether it be her networking efforts. And it seems just so casual is not the right word because it's definitely an intentionality. It's a very strong intentionality, but it doesn't feel like she's working that hard, but you can tell that she is getting it done. Does that make sense? I know I'm probably all over the place right this second. Does that make sense? It just feels natural because she's an outgoing person. She's social. She's super helpful. She studies the industry, right? She really, really understands why people make the decisions that they make. And I remember, I think it was the very last month of the year, December, which most agents come in and say, hey, it's December, nobody buys or sells anything, right? Well, if I'm not mistaken, Paige made nearly 100 grand last December, right? And that's because she had put in the work when a lot of people had already stopped working for the year. Paige now serves on an agent leadership council, which is essentially our board of directors for the office. So her and a handful of other agents are very involved in making a lot of decisions on a hyper local office level. And one of Paige's passions is working with buyers and specifically first-time home buyers. So we brought her in today, number one, to give you a little bit of background about, kind of what her story looks like, right? How she built the business that she has, how she established the confidence that she works within, and some of the tools and techniques she uses to, get out there and speak to, people in the community. And I also want her to share a little bit about how she, kind of her vision for how to help first-time home buyers, and particularly in this environment, Paige, like how do you get somebody that might be saving like for years and years and years to like finally get that 3.5% down for an FHA loan, or finally get that 5% down for a conventional loan, and they've saved and saved and saved, and they're like, hey, well, I could probably do this if I get the seller to pay closing costs. And then you're the one that says, hey, by the way, no closing costs, no warranty. We need you to go 20 grand above list price, appraisal gap, no contingencies, no inspection.
Yep.
I want you to help us walk through how you have that conversation with your buyers, particularly your first-time home buyers, and how you've been able to have success with those clients as well. So without further ado, I'm going to let Paige take over. I would just want to thank you publicly for taking time out of your day to spend with us, and thank you in advance for all the wisdom that you're going to share with our group. Just so you know, we kind of have a mixture today of newer agents, as well as agents that have been around for maybe a year or 2 years, a couple that have been around longer than that. And you know, even as you know, even the basics, a review of the basics is really helpful. So again, thank you for being here today. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. For those of you that have already taken a few of my classes or that may already know me, hi. Sorry you have to hear this again, but my name is Paige Pace. I'm realtor in the office here with Keller Williams. I serve on the Agent Leadership Council, which comprises the top 20% of agents. And like Bill mentioned, acts as a board of directors within the office to help with some decisions. I have been a realtor for about 6 years. I'm currently in my 6th year, coming up on 7 next April, and I'm a 3rd generation realtor, meaning that in my family, if you're not an engineer, you're probably in real estate. So I was originally going to school for English, rhetoric, and composition, and found my love and my passion for marketing and owning a business. Most of my business is centered around first-time home buyers. So like Bill mentioned, right now is a really challenging market. So it's a tough conversation to have to tell people that have been saving for years and years and years, that have friends and family that have gone through this whole first-time home buying process maybe last year or the year before, that had a completely different transaction. Hey, don't talk to your friends and family about what they went through and what they experienced, because what you're about to experience is a completely different animal. So I would
fix everything on our inspection report. It was so awesome, right?
Yeah. And it's so challenging to tell people to, you know, don't talk to them about this process because it is very different. And I want you, if you have any questions, to come to me. Don't Google anything. Don't feel like you have to go to a friend. I'm your business professional. I'm representing you in your best interests, and I'm happy to assist you in any questions that you have along the way. So before, in the past, maybe a year, 2 years ago, buyer consultation was not as important as it is today. Today, I would say a buyer consultation is absolutely crucial before you show a first home. It's really important, of course, that you address that buyer's needs, but also that you set the expectation for the rest of the process, that as we're going through this, there are certain things that we cannot request, such as minor, I would say minor repairs, even some major repairs if you have anything big. Most sales are going to be as is in this market. And the way I address that with my client when discussing due diligence is simply that we're not going to be nickel and diming the client. So when you are under contract on your new home and the inspector comes in and they say, here's a list of some repairs, think of those repairs as a honey-do list, things that you can do once you move into your new home on a rainy Saturday, not things that we're going to be asking the seller to address unless it's a major issue, like the roof is falling apart, your hot water heater is on fire, and your foundation is cracked. That's something that perhaps we would go back to the seller and ask for repairs. But if you have a GCFI outlet that's not working, and maybe that's a $200 repair, maybe you have a leaky sink and that's $50 with a plumber, that's not something that you need them to fix. And I keep reminding my clients along the way as well, if we're looking at resale, that it's resale. And if you would like new construction, we can look at new construction, but resale will have some minor issues. Yeah. Uh-oh, Bill, you're muted.
That never happens, I swear. But every time it does happen, I say it never happens. So can you kind of walk us through a little bit of how do you even get the clients? Like, how do you make the spigot open, right? How do you help people understand who you are and why you are a great match for them as their real estate resource and as their advisor? How do you even get the clients? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So I'm actually going to be teaching a marketing class later this week. We're going to go into all of that. A lot of my marketing, like I mentioned previously, it is my passion. So I try to do my marketing a little bit differently and try to come from a place of gratitude with all of my clients. They know that I'm thankful to have them. Every time I have a conversation with them, and in my emails and text correspondence, often I will say, thank you so much for your partnership. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to earn your business. Even if it's a relative or family friend, there are more agents than there are houses to sell, and it was their choice to choose me. So I remind them constantly that they are working with me out of choice and not obligation. And for that reason, along the way, I try to add as much value back to them as I can. So when I text them, I feel that a lot of agents will make the mistake of following up with other buyers along the way, maybe buyers that have been passive or nurture leads, and they'll say, you know, what can I do to help you? Instead of saying, what can I do to help you? Maybe shift the conversation and say, hey, Jenny, I saw this wonderful home at ABC Apple Street the other day. I thought of you because it has 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, is in the right school district, and has the perfect yard for your kids. Are you interested in me setting up a tour for this? If they have not been responsive in the past, now you're providing them a house. And maybe they say, yes, this is great, or, it's awesome. However, I'm really looking for a stucco exterior and this is brick. Then you say, oh, okay, fantastic. Well, I've got a couple other options. I'd love to show you, maybe set something up for Saturday. But before we go on our tour, do you have time for a quick call, maybe 5 or 10 minutes for a short consultation, just to make sure that I understand what you're looking for and we can go through the process? So, a way to re-engage clients and then get them focused back on what they were originally looking for. And the other thing is to always keep the end in mind. So if buyers start to feel overwhelmed with the process, oh my goodness, there's so many other buyers in the market, that's fine. I never use the word bidding war as much as I say it's a multiple offer situation. I would be shocked if we're not in a multiple offer situation. You choose beautiful homes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, I love that. Let me summarize that for 1 second. So we need to come from contribution. And we've had, the majority of us have learned this fairly quickly, but if you're not gonna feel or sound like a salesperson if you come from contribution, right? And you're looking to bring value. This whole internet thing kind of shifted I sound like I'm from the 90s here. This whole internet thing shifted the way that buyers perceive what a realtor actually does and what they do not do. So before, one of the primary things that a realtor did to quote unquote earn their commission was find the home. Now the buyer is generally the one that finds the home, right? It's on some type of list that they found or that you sent them or something like that. So the second they identify the home and they're like, hey, Paige, I'd like to see that one on Hill Street. And you're like, oh, yeah, let me look that one up really fast. They're like, wait, I thought she cared about me, right? When Paige has that same alert set up and she's looking every morning to see if there's a home that matches the criteria that buyer has expressed interest in, then it's a whole different attitude. Now Paige found the home and Paige is thinking about them, and that means that they're important. And then you say, hey, oh, and by the way, when you sent them that property and they say, hey, I don't want stone, I want stucco, or I don't want brick, I want stucco, now you've got something else on the list. So just so I'm clear, is that like a deal breaker? So any home that you see, no matter how beautiful the inside is, if it's brick on the outside, does that mean we're not interested?
Yeah.
And they say yes, well, now we can edit our search and you're not wasting any more time, right? So that's an important kind of summary statement, is you will probably not be the one to find all these properties, but you should be making your best effort to make them feel like you are trying your damnedest to do it. Does that make sense?
And on that note, I really try hard to never say no. Everything should always be yes, absolutely, wonderful, perfect, fantastic, would love to. Even if they say, hey, are you available to see this house tonight at 6 o'clock and it's 5:45?
Right.
Absolutely, I would love to show you this home. How's 7 p.m.? So even if, all that to say, even if you can't always say yes and find a way to spin that in a positive way, keeping in mind that this is really stressful. Again, if you've taken my classes, you've heard me say this before. 3 of the most stressful things that somebody can do in their lifetime is get married, have a baby, and buy a house. And they're choosing to do one of those 3 things with you. So to make that as uplifting and pleasant as possible is going to be what's best for you as well as for your client. I have one client right now who, no matter how many conversations I have, it's impossible for us to set realistic expectations. And everybody has that buyer, right? So for me, it's the Smith family. The Smith family has been shopping with me for almost a full year. They came to me as a referral, and what they're looking for is going to be in Woodstock or Ackworth. It's going to be a 2-story home with a 2-story wall of windows in the living room that doesn't have a fireplace on that wall of windows, that has an open floor plan, is on a basement that's fully finished with 10-foot ceilings, that's under $500,000 with a fenced-in backyard, a flat front yard, and a variety of other things that are very, very, very minor. And I found it the other day. Oh my God, we've been looking for a year and I found this house at $700,000. So I sent it to them and I said, hey guys, so just wanted to touch base with you. As my previous texts have all said, we're still searching the market. Know that I know what you're looking for and I understand what you want. There's nothing that quite fits that because we're in a national inventory shortage. I found this one. It's not quite perfect, but let me know if you're interested in seeing it. Now I have a new one and it's perfect, right? So I send them a text message and I say, hey guys, hope you're doing great. Wanted to follow up with you. I know you're probably tired of me telling you I haven't found the perfect home for you yet. However, I finally found one and it checks all of your boxes. It's in the right location. It has A, B, C, D through Z. And here it is. Know that I was apprehensive to send you this because my goal is not to exceed or push your price point. And this is $200,000 above your price point. But my goal is to show you all of the inventory and send it to you before you send it to me. So always feel comfortable telling me no, but what do you think of this house?
Right.
And say right back, oh my God, it's beautiful, we love it, but we really need to stay within our price point. And now they're willing to adjust some of the things that are on their needs list.
That's the end result is you're doing your job by helping educate them on what they want. What they want does exist. Well, it's hard to find, but it does exist. It just doesn't exist at 500,000. It exists at 700,000.
Right.
So that's I love that technique. So let's get real specific about how do you handle that kind of that barely first-time home buyer, if you will, right? The person who's like just, like they've been saving for years, and we talked about this earlier. Like they're just in a position where 3-4 years ago it would have been pretty painless. Today it's like, wait, what do you mean I have to come up with my closing cost? Wait, what do you mean? What's this thing, appraisal gap? You want me to pay above the appraisal? Walk me through how do you manage that? How do you, if they're not capable of doing some of those things, how do you manage that? If they are, how do you make sure they know that it's like reasonable? Walk us through some of those discussions.
Awesome. And I think a lot of this is covered in a buyer consultation class that I teach as well. And please come to those. They're fantastic if you are new to buyer consultations or if you're looking to add some things to your own consultation. However, when I am talking to a client for the first time, I don't go off a script. I just go off feelings and emotions. How is the client feeling, and try to drive the conversation towards whatever they'd like based on their DISC profile. It's usually fairly easy to identify that person's DISC profile by asking them what their career is, as well as a couple other questions about what they're looking for in their home. If they seem fairly emotional, the conversation is going to go a little bit different than if I know that they're a CD and they need to feel like they're driving the conversation. They need to feel like they have the numbers in front of them, right?
So not to turn this into a DISC class, but can you give us like a tiny summary about what that is and how you use it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, I'm a CD. So it's easiest for me to teach, or rather to have that consultation, which is essentially teaching your client, right? You're educating them on the process, even if they've already been through the process 100 times. Every market's different. Every state handles things differently. And the Atlanta market is an animal all on its own. So I try to go through it with them. A CD, C is very analytical, and D is the driver. So the driver is like your CEO, your business man that wants to feel like, maybe your sales professional that wants to feel like they're in control of the conversation. So I do what I can to lead the conversation and let them feel like they're in control. My C's are going to be my analytical people. I'm going to start with numbers with them and say, hey, have you looked at this amazing mortgage calculator? I love it. I use it every single day. It's going to help you figure out what's comfortable for you in your monthly mortgage and where we need to stay within our price range when we're searching for homes. My S's and my I's are usually very communicative and very emotional. So for those people, it may be a little bit more challenging of a process than my DCs who say, okay, we didn't win, that's fine, next, as opposed to my SIs who will want to write love letters to my clients, to the buyers or the sellers.
Right. So how, walk me through, like, let's say I was the person who had, just gotten to the 5% down payment. We've been talking for a year and I finally got my credit to a good place. And I'm like, all right, Paige, let's go out and buy homes. Walk me through, prepare me for what I'm going to experience out in the marketplace.
Sure. I would say, Bill, oh my God, that's fantastic. Congratulations. We've been working together for a year now, and you're finally in a position where you can purchase. And I'm so excited to be the one that's helping you through this home buying process. I promise I'm going to make this as easy for you as possible. So for that reason, I'd like to start by talking you through the contract to close process and let you know that once we're under contract with me, it's going to be a very seamless, easy, turnkey transition and transaction into your next home. So The hardest part's probably going to be finding your new home. And to do that, we need to identify what it is you're looking for. So tell me, Bill, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms do you want in your dream home? What does that look like? Let them
So
have
I want a 4-bedroom home in Woodstock for below 400,000, and it needs to have needs to be in a cemetery community in this elementary school district.
Fantastic. Okay, perfect. And on that note, when a buyer asks me about school districts, especially if they're from out of state, they'll often say, what's a good school district? And my answer for that is always every child has different needs. And their housing laws prohibit me from answering that. So I would advise going on greatschools.com. They're a wonderful website. Check out what the school ratings are, and then have your child interview with the school and figure out which school is the best fit for them.
Perfect.
Yep. As far as the conversation past that, like I said, you just told me what you're looking for. My goal now is to fill in those gaps. So, oh, that's awesome. Do you want an open floor plan? Is that something that's important to you? 400,000. Oh my God, Bill, you did such a great job saving up the money to be able to purchase this home. Let me ask you, would you be open to renovating? Do you have any cash put aside for that? Or do you want something that's turnkey?
I'd be open to a little bit of renovating. The thing is I just don't have any money for closing costs, and like I can't do any more than 5% down payment. Like, what's my chances of being successful out there right now? I heard
Gotcha.
it's crazy.
Yeah, you know, if you've looked in the news, you probably heard it's kind of a crazy environment right now in the home buying world. However, have you talked to your lender yet?
I have, yeah.
Awesome.
Like I said, I'm comfortable up to about 400,000. It would be on a 5% down conventional loan. And they're telling me it's going to be like $8,000 or $9,000 in closing costs. So I'm hoping the seller can pay for that. What do you think?
Awesome. So in a traditional market, what we see when I say traditional market, most of the time what I'm thinking of is my late winter, fall market. Sometimes there we can ask the seller for closing costs, and usually it's up to half of the amount that you would need in closing costs. However, right now, with it being such a competitive market, this is typically where I would introduce the buyer to my lender. It's great that Bill is coming to me and he's already pre-approved. I have a great relationship with my lender, and my lender has offered most of my buyers some closing costs if they close with him. So that's a win-win for both parties. It's a win for Bill because he's going to get a great rate and he's going to get some of his closing costs paid. It's a win for me because I know we're going to get the house closed once we find the right one. If my lender says we can do it, I know we can. But also, my lender is fantastic, and he's going to call the other agent on the sell side and let them know how qualified Bill is, even if he's only 5% down, and we're up against some other offers that are 20%. So this is where I'm going to interject and talk about lending, pitch up how great my lender is, talk about that he's offering closing costs, and then also tell him that I really feel like he needs somebody that's local. This is why Ben's great, and he's going to be able to cover some of those closing costs. However, if 400,000 is where we want to be, then perhaps we should be shopping a little bit lower, knowing that our lender is going to help us with some closing costs, but we're still going to have some over here on the side to cover ourselves.
Okay, and what's this thing with an appraisal gap? Am I going to have to, I heard about that online somewhere. What's the deal with that? Is that something I'm going to have to do?
And that's a great question. So when we're talking about contract to close, I never want to lead with, hey, this is the painful part. So I want to lead with the end in mind and say, contract to close, first we're going to go through due diligence. Due diligence is your right to inspect the home with a home inspector. What is due diligence? How does it work? And then like I mentioned earlier, we're going to say, and by the way, they're going to put together a book of things for you to repair, things that'll probably come up when you sell your house with another buyer, just rainy day activities. Nothing that we're going to nickel and dime the seller over, but things that you should be aware of. For example, your hot water heater may be a little bit older. You may want to put a home warranty on the house. Your GCFI outlets might not be functional. You may want to have an electrician come out, or a rainy Saturday, watch a YouTube video and fix it. It's about a $50 fix. Once we get through that, knowing that all of your contingency theories start at the same time and run congruently together, you'll have a financing appraisal, or you'll have financing contingency and an appraisal contingency. I explain what appraisal is and what a financing contingency is. And during my appraisal speech, I say, you know, in an ideal world, the property is going to appraise for at or well above what you are offering on the home. Most appraisers know in this market that the houses, we've got high demand for them, we've got low inventory. And what that means is that hopefully the market is increasing, and therefore your home value is as well, and your appraisal is coming in where you need it.
Yep.
In the off chance that your appraisal comes in low, meaning that it comes in below what you and the seller have already negotiated on day one of going under contract. This is where typically most buyers will offer what's called an appraisal contingency gap. A gap of contingency for appraisal simply states that you as a buyer are willing to make up some of the difference that the bank's not willing to lend on the loan for your new home. At this price point, 400 to 500 or 200 to 300 or wherever your client is looking, I will generally set the expectation by saying, at this price point, most buyers, what we're seeing in the market is they're willing to come X out of pocket in the event it doesn't appraise. Is that something that you might be willing to do? And if so, how much higher would you be willing to go?
I think that takeaway there is first of all, every time that I've brought something up, you have acknowledged positively that comment. So I want to make sure everyone has noted that. The next thing is with the kind of a soothing voice and you can tell that if we weren't looking at you, you would have a smile on your face anyway. Like if this conversation was happening over the telephone, you're helping them get an education so they can feel like they're being cared for, right? Because they are being cared for. So like you suggested, there's a difference between saying, well, gosh, if you can't come up with closing costs, we're never going to get a home. It's like, well, yeah, with that attitude, you're probably right. I think I'll go find a happy realtor, right? Maybe they can help me. Right. So I think it's not just the words that are coming out of her mouth, it's the way she's saying them that is really what's giving comfort to the buyer, I believe. Ebony, did you have a question?
Yes. So in today's market, if you had a buyer and the house was relatively new, in order to win the bid, would you ever consider waiving the due diligence? That's question number one, kind of to potentially win. And also when you're talking about the appraisal gap, let's just say that my buyer, she was approved for $400,000, but the house that she wanted was $410,000. Could you use the appraisal gap if she wanted to cover the difference of that $10,000 on her own? What paperwork would you use to show that she's going to pay the difference above what she was approved for?
That's a great question. So to answer your first question on due diligence, no, I never waive due diligence ever. I know some people do. I've got one of my listings under contract right now. It's a 2019 condo and they have chosen to waive due diligence. They're going to come back for an inspection, but they're just coming back to take measurements on Friday. The problem with that is that you're not a licensed inspector. So to help mitigate your back end of this transaction, meaning that once you close on the property in 6 months, you don't get an angry call from your client that says, hey, we should have done this. Why didn't we do this? And now I'm having all these different problems. And by the way, I want you to cover the cost for it. I would say always have a due diligence period. Explain to your client like, hey, this is your chance to vet the property. If you're comfortable not having a due diligence, fantastic. Then what we should do to strengthen our offer is to add in a stipulation saying that our offer is as is. We're not going to nickel and dime the seller on the back end of the transaction once we're contract to close, but also maybe add some non-refundable due diligence or non-refundable earnest money or some option money. Your option money is non-refundable and your earnest money would have been refundable if you had a due diligence period. If you're waiving it, it would not have been. So it's the same thing to them, whether they do it or not. It's just good for them to know up front. These are some things that are going to come up when I sell my house, and also maybe some things I can get ahead of before I have some more major problems.
Right. The only thing I would add to that is explaining to them if they are willing to waive a due diligence period, then I would give them an example of something that might happen and what the end result would be of that. Like if you waive a due diligence period, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't inspect the home. It just means that you don't have the ability to leave the contract if you find something that's problematic. And you have the ability to ask the seller to fix something, but they're under no obligation to even acknowledge that or certainly not agree to that, right? So if we were to waive that so that we could quote win, and then you find out that there's a big plumbing issue that's going to be, let's say, $5,000 to fix, then you're still going to be expected to buy the home. And here's what the penalty could look like if you choose to back out, right? So anytime that they are going to take a risk that we believe to be, a little unusual, You want to make sure that they understand that if this happens, these are going to be your choices, right? So I tend to agree with Paige on that one. People waiving their due diligence period, that's really tough right now. Like, I know sometimes that's what it takes to win. I got to tell you, I think that's a bit irresponsible. And like Paige said, is no matter what happens, whether you explained it to them 50 times or not, they're going to come back to you and be like, what's the deal here? I'm pissed. This broke and you're my agent. How did you let this happen?
Yeah.
And if you go back and you're like, remember I told you this and this and this, they're still upset,
Yeah.
right?
And I-
Hey, Bill, can you tell the difference between if someone waives the due diligence versus just doing a right to request repairs?
Yes.
And with the
Okay, so let me explain that briefly. So a due diligence period is essentially a free look period. So let's just say it's 5 days for discussion purposes. That means for any reason within those 5 days, inspection related or otherwise, the buyer can leave the contract without penalty. They would get a full refund of their earnest money. Okay. They can leave because the sun came out that day. They could leave because they found a different home. They could leave because there was an inspection issue. Doesn't make a difference. If instead of due diligence, you select right to request repairs, what you're telling the seller is you are only now contractually able to leave the contract if there's an inspection issue, meaning you now cannot just change your mind, right? Or there couldn't be a new home that popped up that caused you to pursue that, right? So now you can only leave the contract for a material defect that was requested. You have to request that it be fixed, and the seller says no, right? So I have a active leak in the roof. I asked the seller to fix it. They said no. Now I have the ability to leave. But if you ask the seller to fix the leaky roof and they fix it, you can't leave. Does that make sense?
So perhaps better than that would be to have a minimal day due diligence. Try to book your inspection with your inspector before you're under contract so you know that what you're putting in this due diligence space is actually achievable.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then just have it be as is. Add a clause that says that it's an as is transaction so that you have the right to back out without having to request and possibly get denied on or get approved repairs. If you get approved for repairs and really your client just wanted the house next door and you were hoping to terminate, but they say, yeah, we'll fix that GCFI outlet, because like I said, it's like a $50 fix, and your client wants to back out, now they're at risk of losing their earnest money. So your job, contract to close, should be how can I best safeguard my earnest money and educate my client on where we are in the process and what's currently happening.
That's exactly right. Just one thing I want to make sure people caught there is because we're having to, get people out there so quickly to do inspections and that kind of thing, as I am in the negotiations and I am starting to feel like I might be a winner, I'm already texting my inspector, hey, how's Tuesday look for you? Hey, how's Wednesday look for you? I might have something, hold it for me, pencil me in, right? And then the second I get signatures, then everyone's notified, hey, we got signatures, need you here this day, this day, right? But don't just like get signatures at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and then get around to calling the inspector the next afternoon, or you're gonna have problems from the get-go.
Right,
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So, okay, I do that. Like I always go ahead, like as I'm writing the contract, I definitely go ahead and reach out to an inspector, do all of that. So that way everything is on the same time frame. But if you're doing the right to request repairs, opposed to doing the due diligence, and my due diligence period is never longer than 2 days, what's the time frame on the right to request repairs if the house if it's going to be based upon an inspection? You know what I mean? So if we're doing the right to request repairs and something comes back wrong and your person can walk, if the seller doesn't want to fix that, doesn't that still kind of slow up the time frame of everything as well? Like I don't see that being that beneficial.
Well, that is, I would say the order in favorability to the buyer is due diligence period, so they have all the rights to leave, then right to request repairs, then I'm going to waive every contingency, right? So yes, it does slow it down, yet that is a better way to protect your buyer, right? So you might, in the consultation that Paige was referring to earlier, she would say, hey, in my experience, if we do this, we have a better shot at being successful than if we do this.
Right.
Now knowing what I just told you, are you willing to waive that contingency? Are you willing to take on that risk?
Right. And I don't know if you have ever heard of Feel, Felt, Found, but it is Sales 101. And it's a fantastic thing I use all the time, where if your client is having a hard time understanding what you're saying because they're an emotional buyer, they're your SI or your IS, and they want the house and they're just not understanding what you're saying when you're saying, we need to have an inspection. They're saying, just waive it. It's a 2019 condo. Meanwhile, you know there may be some issues that you can't see. Maybe with the roof, you haven't climbed on the roof. Maybe in the crawl space, you haven't gone down there. You don't know what the foundation looks like, nor are you certified to. Using Feel, Felt, Found is very helpful, where you can say, you know what, I completely understand where you're coming from. In fact, I had another client, and usually you make this part up to kind of curate the story to what you need, where you say, you know, I had another client that feels the same way that you feel when they were going through their process. They really wanted to waive their due diligence period, and they wanted to have their entire down payment as their earnest money. And what they felt once they went under contract is that they were really at risk, and they were really jeopardizing quite a bit of money because they were in a position where they didn't have a right to inspect for repairs. And also, you know, there's something that could come up and they would be losing all of the earnest money that they worked so hard to build up, and that's their entire down payment. So if we lost it, we'd lose the whole thing. At the end of the transaction, what they found is that if they had done X, Y, and Z, whatever you're recommending, that it probably would have been a much easier, much smoother transition for them. They probably would have still gotten everything that they needed done in their transaction, but it would have been a lot of less stress off their plate. And so therefore, what I would advise for you is to avoid that pain that that person went through. Why don't we consider doing A, B, and C?
Yeah, so feel, felt, found, right? Sometimes if you're the party just like saying what you need to say, then they feel like it's salesy. They feel like you've got ulterior motives, right?
It's called
If you,
commission breath.
one more time.
Hey,
It's called commission breath.
Yes, commission breath, exactly. If instead what you do is you tell a story. Now, you never name names. You never say, hey, the Williamsons that bought that home over there, gosh, they were so stingy and they were so, such a pain in the ass to work with, right? You never say anything like that. It's very vague. I mean, ideally, you've had situations like this, so you don't have to, be inauthentic and real, but you're telling the story about how they were successful or potentially how they were not successful, and how the prospect in front of you can learn from that. Candace, did you want to add something?
no, I wanted to shift in a different direction and ask Paige two things. One, how are you setting expectations for your buyers and having the conversation when they don't win to keep them heartened? And two, how do you keep your head in the game? What do you do to support your mindset when it's so difficult working with buyers right now?
Great questions.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I tell all of my clients from the get-go, as we're submitting our offer, I say, listen, before I submit this offer, let me ask you, is there anything on here that you would like to adjust? For example, the price. If we lose this home because somebody else beat us out by $2,000 or $3,000, is that going to be upsetting to you, or is that something that you would be comfortable with? If it's something that's upsetting to you, we need to go back and revise this before we send it. We need to put our best foot forward. There are 30 other offers on the table. We want to be as strong as possible. We want to be best in show. So trying to negate that from the beginning, so that when you come back because you didn't win, somebody came in $50,000 high and you were only $5,000 high, you can go back to your client and say, listen, you submitted an amazing offer. You did fantastic. And it's the first of many offers that you submitted. Understand that right now in today's market, most buyers are submitting 3 or 4 offers before they win. Just because you didn't win this one doesn't mean you're not going to win the next one. We have more experience in the process and how it works, how to submit an offer, and what we're going to be facing as we move forward. That other buyer put in an offer that was exponentially higher. It's not something that we could compete with. And therefore, I think, sometimes things happen for a reason. And when you find the right one, you'll be so happy this one didn't work out. All of my clients that have had homes that they didn't work out have found later on at the closing table, I hear this all the time, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't get the other one. This one's amazing.
I hear this all the time. That's critical, right? You're letting them know they're not the only person that's ever experienced this.
And understand too, we didn't win this home. There were 30 offers on it. Us and 28 other people didn't win it too. You're in really good company. It's just a tough market right now, but we're doing everything we can. And maybe we shift our focus a little bit. and we try to look for some off-market homes. So this is where I'm telling them what I'm doing to assist them. That's different from what they're doing on Zillow. So if they're searching on Zillow, they feel like, you know, Paige didn't get me this house. She's not really adding as much value as I thought she would. She told me she's a great negotiator and now I lost. It's not Paige's fault that y'all didn't put $50,000 over asking, and that's not going to appraise, right? So what we would do from there is say, I want to make sure you find the home of your dreams. So what I'm doing is proactively searching the market, trying to find something that would be an off-market home for you. So I have already sent out mailers to that neighborhood, or already called, or already started sending out what's called slide dial, which is voicemails to that whole neighborhood to see if there's somebody else that's considering selling. If that's the case, we would be able to avoid multiple offers altogether. So know that even though there's not a lot of inventory, I'm still working for you on the back end, and here's how.
I love that. How do you, I want you to comment real fast on how you stay so positive, because it's so easy to get dragged down in the muck of what it's like to be a real estate agent. But I also would love for you to talk about, if you can for a moment, I mean, you're just saying this stuff so naturally. Like, how did you get to the stage you're at right now? I mean, you've been in the business 6 years, but I mean, that's not a ton of time, right? How are you so polished?
Oh, I appreciate it. So what I have found as far as mindset is having really good friends that are in the industry with you that can maybe not relate to the transaction that you're going through, but at least identify perhaps some places where you are weak that you could be stronger, as well as be a shoulder to lean on when things are getting really tough and very challenging. For me, I've got 3 really great friends that are also realtors real estate can be often very competitive. I know we have a lot of awards in the office, which I don't really like because sometimes it makes you feel down when you don't get one, right? And every time I get one, I'm like, oh man, there are these other people that maybe didn't get one that are feeling down, that are really working hard. So understand that it's not a competition. The only person you're competing against is yourself. And if you're doing better than you did yesterday, you're doing great. That's all you can hope for, is to continue to improve and progress. And the way to do that, opposed to just having friends that are going to be there for you when you're going through challenges and help strengthen you and you help strengthen them, also continuing to learn and be engaged in the market. So what's happening in my market today? How can I be the best agent out there? What's the newest tools and the newest resources that are going to give me the edge over the competition? And what podcasts can I listen to? What online trainings can I do? What courses are the offices offering? It's not just our office, it's any of Andy's Keller Williams offices that you can attend. Is there anything in the area?
Any for that matter. I mean, you can go to you can find a class in Decatur and go to that.
Exactly. And Keller Williams is such a great resource for that. It doesn't matter if you're brand new or if you're in year 6, it's really good to continue to keep that mindset open to learning and exploring new things.
Awesome. I think that is so important, is to have partners, right? People that when you're having a lousy day, they can cheer you up. When they're having a lousy day, you can cheer them up. And to know that, like, look, if you just continue to do the work, right? If you continue to show up and learn every day and build your network every day, you're going to be successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
the other thing is confidence. Whatever you say, speak it with confidence. So even if you're not sure, you can say, you know, that's a great question, and I'd love to put you in touch with the right person. So when we leave this appointment, I'm going to put you in touch with the lender who's going to be able to answer those lending questions. Just because you know the answer doesn't mean you're licensed to answer it. But whatever you do share with them, share it with confidence and share it positively, and they're going to react really well to that.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to interject one kind of housekeeping thing, and then I'm going to let you close out the meeting really quickly. So today is Think Big. There has been a number of messages that have been sent out. The most recent one, I'm sure there'll be a link this morning that's texted to you guys, but on the newsletter, the daily newsletter from Melody and Lucy, there's a link for that. That's from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. There are that is going to be on Zoom, as well, the KW Roswell training class, or Paige, as well as in person. That's from 10 to 1. So Julian was kind enough to volunteer to teach a Vulcan 7 class today. We had originally had that scheduled for 11 o'clock, and he was kind enough to adjust his schedule to allow people to attend both his class and Think Big. So we're going to move that today to 1 o'clock. So from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we'll have the Vulcan7.com class. That will be recorded. I know it's a little last minute change. I apologize for that. If you're not able to make it, please know that it'll be recorded. And do not forget to make sure that all your homework is completed for Bold, as Bold will start again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Paige, let's pretend, I like to ask this question. Let's pretend like, you know how sometimes they say, like, if you had a billboard, what would you put on the billboard, right? So everyone that you're in relationship with can see the message. You're looking here today at a bunch of people who had, you know, just like you did, I'm sure, just like I did, had this dream to build this business and this thing and be an entrepreneur and help lots of families and make the kind of money that we all want to make, right? And yet some of these people are not, you know, they may be on track, but they're not there yet, right? So what message do you want to share with them? Some that are just really kind of getting the momentum, some that are, you know, maybe in a frustrating moment, you know, dealing with this market, maybe some that are, you know, just kind of figured out what the next step is. Like, what advice do you have for them? Give us some parting thoughts, if you would. And by the way, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I appreciate your time. Share one last piece of wisdom with us, if you don't mind.
So a couple of things, what I would recommend, one, just like you may have a mantra in your day-to-day to help keep your spirits high and focus on what you're doing, try to have one for your business. A lot of people will call it a slogan. For me, it's providing a luxury experience at every price point. Whether you're buying at 200,000 or you're buying at 2 million, I want that person to feel like they're going through the exact same thing. So if you haven't already identified what that is for you, and everybody's is going to be different, try to identify what it is, the service you're trying to provide, have a slogan or a mantra for it, and then really move forward with it. It's going to help push your business in the direction that you're trying to go. A big why, just like having a slogan, is really important. Why am I getting out of bed? Why am I doing this? Why am I continuing to put in offers that I know may not win? Because sometimes your client has to lose a couple to realize that they need to follow your advice. That's perfectly fine. It's very natural in this market. But keep in mind that if you're on day one, Michael Jordan didn't pick up a basketball and just become really, really good at it. He practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. So just like you're going to these classes, just like you're putting in offers, just like you're out there pounding the pavement trying to get business and new clients, everything that you're doing is a growing and a learning experience. And so when I started my business, I unfortunately started at another firm. I started at Berkshire Hathaway, and they didn't have a great program for new agents. So most of my learning was in the form of failure. Failing forward. So failure is part of growth. If you're finding that there are some things that you're doing and you're like, oops, and you're having a lot of oops moments, take that in stride and know that you are improving. And yes, you made a mistake, but next time you're not going to make that mistake again, and you're going to do much better.
That's right. Great advice. Thank you for sharing that. I think, like you said, at the end of the day, it's about knowing that this is you're making, you know, very small changes by the hour or by the day or by the week. And the accumulation of all these new skills and talents that you have, and most importantly, as you mentioned several times today, confidence, you will make an impact. And if you stay focused and you really have a strong desire to be successful, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Perfect. I appreciate you being willing to go over a little bit today. Thank you guys for your efforts. As always, it's a pleasure being in business together. Paige, you, I assume, are available if people have some questions in the future. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Next week on Wednesday, let's see, Wednesday at 2:30, I will be in office teaching an in-person objection handling class. Objection handling is sometimes viewed negatively. It's viewed as you trying to get somebody to do what you want. That's not the case. Objection handling is problem solving. So we're going to take some of those common objections that we see. I don't have the down payment, or I want to rent, I'll purchase next year, whatever those objections that you're seeing today are, and try to make that a positive scenario for your buyer as well as for yourself. On the 24th, at 1:30, I'll be teaching my listing class, where I'll go through my listing consultation with you and what I do contract to close to make that a special experience for my client. So feel free to drop by if you have not been already. If you've already been, it's a lot of the same content.
Okay, so 2:30 to 3:30 next Wednesday is objection handling. And next Thursday, the 24th, is a listing consultation with you. Do you recall what the time is on that?
1:30 to 2:30.
1:30.
I teach a lot of classes in the office as well. That's really where my strong point is in my marketing. I take a lot of pride in putting together polished pieces. If you have any questions and you want to sit down with me one-on-one, I offer that as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, as of course, for today, and thank you for your contributions to the office. And by the way, unless you're taking, 4 or 5 listings a month, you should be at the class. I don't care if you took it last week. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
She will say something that you need to hear differently at that moment. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful day. See you soon.